Today marks 2 weeks since the government pulled the Greyhound Ban Bill from the Legislative Council without notice, without explanation. Since that time, for 2 weeks, there's been radio silence from this government. There's been no explanation as to why it pulled the bill and no advice to the community on what it plans to do from here. That simply is not good enough. This is a significant decision, a decision to prohibit an entire industry, and people's lives depend on it. This government needs to urgently advise what its intentions are from here.
Do we go to the others, or do you want to just ask questions?
Maybe we hear from
probably.
Mick first, and
if that's comfortable.
do that and go to you for questions. Is that all right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. If you just want to keep looking at Lil.
And can you take another step a bit closer? Thank you. Perfect.
No matter where questions come from, Mick, if you keep talking to Lily, that'd be great.
Yep.
Can you just start with your first and last name and your role, so we've got that on the tape?
Michael Stringer. I'm a Greyhound trainer.
Perfect. Well, do you want to start with a bit of a statement about what the last couple of weeks have been like for you, Michael?
Well, the last couple of weeks it's been pretty stressful. The whole boxing, the whole exercise from the time he announced that he banned racing has been stressful for the Greyhound participants. But since the deferral, it's gone to another level. I've had lots of participants ring me, wondering where do we go from here? Which direction are we going in? What can we do? And the answer is, well, we don't really know. We're in limbo, and it's not a good place to be.
You're at the other end of your career, Mick, but how do you feel for the people who are just starting out, who are wondering if they're going to have a livelihood in racing industry in a couple of weeks or months' time? How do you sort of heart go out to them?
Well, that's why I'm fighting. I'm fighting as hard as I can to overturn this ban, because I could walk away tomorrow. The Greyhounds have been very good to me, and I've got interest in thoroughbred race horses. I've been in horses for just about as long as I have greyhounds, so I can move on. But I'm not going to. I'm going to stand with my fellow participants and fight this until we overturn it. It's purely, simply a political decision to keep Rockcliffe in power.
When you say you'll fight it, what does that actually look like? Are you reaching out to the government asking these questions?
Well, yes, we're doing that all the time, but you don't get many answers from this fella that's in charge here now. It's a waste of time asking any questions. He seems to rule with an iron hand, and like I said before, I keep going back to it. Like if he'd have got back in with a majority, we wouldn't even be standing here today. Like coming down, I feel anxious in the stomach here now in front of you people. I shouldn't have to do that at my age.
Sorry, Mike. Do you want to keep going? Okay.
Whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Can you take us back to 2 Thursdays ago and how you felt sort of walking into Parliament hoping, or, listening along thinking that maybe the bill was going to be defeated, to finding out that it had been deferred? What did that feel like?
It didn't feel good at all. We were absolutely deflated. We put a lot of work into our campaign to overturn this ban, and then to have the rug pulled from underneath us again, it wasn't a very nice feeling. There's actually been people, well, I know one girl that's ended up in hospital with the stress of all this that's been going on, and it's not good for our welfare. It's not good for anyone's welfare. You don't treat people like this. We actually voted for Liberal because we had his support. He supported us before the election, and we've got the letter to prove it. I voted for Jane Howell. I unashamedly say that, but I couldn't trust her ever again.
What about you sort of went to bed last Wednesday night a couple of weeks ago knowing you'll wake up the next day with a decision? Now the can's been kicked down the road again, I suppose. What's that like, knowing you're still waiting and not knowing when the outcome will come?
Oh, Brett, it's not good. I went to bed that Wednesday night you're talking about, but had very little sleep. I haven't been sleeping well since this ban's been proposed. And not only myself, but most of the people in the industry. We've done nothing wrong. The industry is very well regulated. We're turning over good money. We're putting heaps of money back into the economy. We're not taxpayer funded at all. And the Eslake report, well, that was just a joke. Saul Eslake's, he's got no idea what he's talking about when he talks about the greyhound industry. And no, it doesn't feel good, Brett, I tell you. You can see the way that I'm talking now. It's frustrating. It really is. Yeah, like we want to get on with our lives. You know, this is not good for anyone's health.
In your view, Mick, when does the government need to announce when the bill's going to come back to Parliament? When do they need to let you know?
Well, this afternoon. Let's know where we're going now. It's been absolute silence since the deferment. Some say that he may be better off after the elections on Saturday, but he won't be. Jo Palmer is in the Legislative Council. She voted last time. Well, if she gets back in, he's not going to gain any votes there. And down the Ewan, well, Dean's sort of put his cards on the table, and we've talked to Dean Harris, and we know where he stands, and we're quite comfortable with his decision. So, like, I can't. He's backing himself into a corner. You know, he's got to come out. He's got to come clean and do. We've got to have some sort of clarification, surely.
Are you worried that? I mean, you've talked about Dean, but Dean could lose his seat to Claire Glade-Wright, who is an opponent of the industry. Are you concerned that the election could make it easier to wind up the industry?
Well, I don't know. We've got to wait and see, I suppose, Adam. But from all the reports I get, Claire Glade-Wright, whatever her name is, she's not in the hunt down there as far as I'm concerned.
I might chat with you if that's possible.
Okay.
Perfect. I'll just get you to start with your first and last name and your role, please.
Greg Fahey. I'm a bit of an all-rounder. I've been full-time participant in greyhound racing since 1980 when I gave up teaching. I'm a breeder, an owner, historian. Was on the initial controlling body of greyhound racing for 10 years from 1982, and I'm a life member of the Hobart Launceston Club.
You want to tell me what the last couple of weeks have been like for you?
Look, the last couple of weeks has been the last 6 months, because ever since the decision was made, everyone in greyhound racing has got up feeling the same way every day. And for them to say we needed more time and that's why they pulled it, well, the upper house deferred it in November to March. How did we need more time? It was simply politics.
Just to follow on from Adam's question, when do you need an answer as to what happens next?
Oh, look, we should have had an answer, and the sooner the better. I mean, we are a country-based industry. Like, it's a livelihood for some people, it's a lifestyle for other people, but 85% of greyhounds are from Wynyard to Georgetown to Copping and everywhere in between. There wouldn't be 20 dogs in Hobart. It's a country-based sport. They haven't got access to things like mental health. Dairy farming is the same as greyhound racing. There's 365 days a year. And the angst it's caused, it's hard to calculate.
Can you talk us through your operation? How many dogs do you breed in any given year, and how many dogs do you have in your property, and all of those kind of things?
Look, that varies enormously. I haven't got a property. My brother is a full-time trainer, and we've bred lots of litters over the last 12 to 14 years in particular, which, you know, hundreds of dogs, and we've had a fair bit of success, but there are much bigger breeders than us, and there are much smaller breeders than us. And again, we've got people all around the state, and that's basically why we're in country areas, because it's not a city.
What's it mean for certainty, you know, having this hanging over your head? Have people been less inclined to get dogs come through you, or what's your certainty of supply been like?
The supply differs from people. Some people just race dogs but don't breed, because breeding is a long-term commitment. But the people who do breed, it's just created enormous uncertainty. All the threats of they're going to stop dogs coming in and out of Tasmania, you can't breed at all. So people have just been in limbo for so long, not just the last 2 weeks. That's just exacerbated the problem.
What do you say to the people that say it's cruel to race greyhounds?
It's so absurd, it's laughable. The welfare and the integrity checks, not in Tasmania but Australia-wide, on greyhound racing are amazing. If anyone's ever looked at it carefully, we are the only dog in Australia that cannot be euthanased without the controlling bodies giving a reason, and that's usually old age or a sickness or a very bad injury, which is highly overrated how many of them we have. And for people to think that greyhounds don't want to race, well, they've been around for 8,000 years, and they came out on the first fleet as hunting dogs because guns weren't any good. So they've played a big role in Australia's history.
If racing was banned, Mick would be able to keep training until 2029, but you'd have to stop breeding immediately, knowing that that's hanging over your head. How does that feel? No, your livelihood ends immediately if it passes.
Well, it's not the livelihood for most people. We just love what we do. I mean, some people make a living out of greyhound racing, but most people don't. But it's a family sport. They love their dogs. They love the camaraderie of all the friends that we have all around the state, as I said, from all these areas that meet at the track on race nights. The dogs love it. They meet with their mates on race night. It's hard to explain for people that aren't involved, but it's a really tight-knit community.
What impact will it have on rural communities if the ban does go through?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Sorry, what impact will it be on rural communities in your experience if the ban does?
Well, our people spend their money in their community, and we're talking about vet supplies, meat, petrol, groceries, the same things that everyone does, but in the rural community, if you put a hole in that, it's a lot more than putting a hole in something in the city where there's many more options. So economically, it would be quite devastating, especially somewhere like Brighton, where probably, I don't know, a quarter of the dogs of Tasmania are housed within 20k of Brighton, and the community there, the amount of money that's spent locally is just amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Come
Thank
on
you.
down.
We'll go back to Bec if that's all right.
Yep.
You can shuffle where Bec was if you'd
Oh
like.
yes, kind of go back on that. Well, Bec, now it's been pulled out of LegCo. When can we expect it to go back to Parliament?
Well, that's a decision that you have to ask the government, and that's exactly what I want the government to do. I'm calling on the government today to announce its intentions here. It's quite clear that the government doesn't have the support for this prohibition bill, and it's quite clear that this is all about politics, not about animal welfare. In fact, this has never been about animal welfare. It's always been about politics. Since the government pulled the bill 2 weeks ago, it hasn't come out to explain why or what it plans to do from here. In fact, the only people who have come out in support of the government's decision to pull it without notice or explanation and try to explain it have been the Greens and crossbenchers who really have driven this policy decision. And that confirms or reinforces everything that we thought about this bill. All the speculation that this is about politics. It's about deals with crossbenchers to secure political power, to stay in power. It's not about animal welfare, it never has been. And this prohibition decision, any prohibition decision, is one of the most significant decisions a parliament can make, and it ought to only be made after all other regulatory measures have been tried and tested, and when there is sufficient proof to justify banning something, prohibiting an entire activity or industry. Prohibition decisions ought to also be taken to elections as policies, and that hasn't happened in this case. So I'm calling on the government to read the room here, to see that it doesn't have support for this, pull the policy, go back and consider animal welfare issues more broadly. If this really is about animal welfare, let's have a community conversation about animal welfare. Let's have a conversation about what activities involving animals are acceptable, and let's take those policies or see those policies taken to elections, because that's what the government really should do if it does care about animal welfare.
Are there any changes the government could make that would lead you to support the prohibition bill?
Not at this time. I don't know what changes the government could possibly make. Again, this is about politics. This isn't about animal welfare. If it is about animal welfare, then I call on the government to explore the issue of animal welfare more broadly and to take it to an election. This is about politics, and that's not why we should be making significant decisions on prohibition.
Do you believe the reason that they pulled it from LegCo is because they knew ultimately it wouldn't get up?
again, a question that the government should be answering. And why aren't they? Why aren't they fronting? They are elected to serve and be accountable to the people, and it's just been radio silence on this bill. It's simply not good enough. You know, people are hurting, as we just heard the guys talk about. There's people who are hurting and living in fear. People are living in fear and uncertainty and significantly stressed because of not just because of the backflip of this government initially on its policy position, but now on another kick in the guts to just kick it down the road further. It's simply not good enough by this government.
The government only needs 3 votes if Claire Glade-Wright wins on the weekend. Lots of people are suggesting that she might. There's only 2. Do you think there's a world where they get the numbers without too many changes to legislation?
Oh, look, I can't speak for my fellow honourable members, but you know, if you're reading the room, if you're hearing what people are saying, what members are saying around the chamber to date, then it doesn't look likely, which, you know, probably is why the government itself is in limbo. It perhaps doesn't know what to do next. But isn't that a sign in itself?
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Can I ask you a budget question? Is that all right? How concerned are you? We've got a big budget next month coming up. Erica Betts looks poised to take the knife out and do a lot of cutting. How concerned are you about sort of that need to balance the bottom line and get the state out of debt, but also not cut public services? How do you feel about that sort of dichotomy Tasmania is in at the moment?
Well, it's a real dilemma that the state government is in and has got itself in, quite frankly. And the bottom line comes down to overspending on elections in recent years. You know, the irresponsibility of this government in that regard has led to the crisis, a lot of the reason for the crisis that we see ourselves in now, and it's really on the government now to correct that. And it's going to be a challenge. It is going to hurt, and it's really important that through the decisions it makes, that the government doesn't leave the community behind, and particularly community services behind. We've seen far too much corporate welfare from this government and not enough support for community services, so that's something I'll be really looking for in the budget.
And one more on greyhounds. You're always inside the wider Clark electorate for at least a little bit longer. Clark normally leans pretty green and progressive. Are you worried that your stance on greyhounds is out of step with the voters you represent?
Oh, look, I like to think that I'm a politician of conviction, and I stand up for what I believe is right and what I believe that most of the people in my electorate would feel is right. And regardless of what you think about greyhound racing, I'd like to think that most Tasmanians and most of the people that I represent in the electorate of Elwick would think that it's simply not right to treat people this way. You know, it's not acceptable, and if the government can do it to the greyhound racing community, it can do it to you as well. You know, backflip on its commitment that it made just a couple of weeks prior to an election in order to gain your support. And that's a worrying sign for people in the community. It's surely got to have an impact on business confidence and jobs and investment in the state if the government can so easily backflip on its word in order to try and retain power. It's simply not good enough.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.